What's going on? Welcome to Asian Cosell. Now, I want to get into another video from Korea Pizza Kitchen. Why Seoul is the hardest place to live on earth. Koreans are giving up. And my title is Why Koreans Giving Up with Living in Seoul and their viewpoint on things. So, we're going to get right into this. So, shout out to Dave from Korea Pizza Kitchen and let's get into it.
For the average person in Seoul, it takes 25 years of saving every penny to buy just a modest apartment. That's longer than in New York, Paris, Tokyo, or London. Owning a home is a dream shared by many around the world, but in South Korea, it's more than that. It's an unstoppable obsession. In Korea, home ownership is everything, seen as a symbol of stability, success, and adulthood. But this obsession comes at a staggering cost. Koreans, especially younger Koreans, are determined to do whatever it takes to buy homes. They take out gigantic loans and even risk financial ruin for a slice of the housing pie. Today, we'll dive deep into why this happens, how it compares globally, and the devastating impact it has on the South Korean society. First, the crushing reality of Seoul's housing market. So let's start with the numbers. Seoul price to income ratio, called the PIR, is an eye-watering 25.1, meaning it would take 25 years of saving every bit of your income to afford an average home. For households led by someone under 29, it would take a staggering 86.4 years to buy an apartment. That's literally a lifetime. As of the first half of 2024, the average apartment price in Seoul is approximately 1.12 billion Korean won, about 840,000 US dollars, reflecting a 147.3% increase from the first half of 2014.
Sorry about that.
So, why are the housing costs getting out of control? The housing crisis isn't just bad luck, it's the result of deep systemic issues. The first one being cultural expectations and myths. In South Korea, buying a home is more than practical, it's a social milestone. Renting, no matter how luxurious, doesn't carry the same status. There's a saying among Koreans, 부동산 불패, which means real estate never loses. Or another variation is gangnam 불패, which means Gangnam never loses. Convinced that property values will eternally go up.
Okay, so you see, he said the price, an average of 840,000, and especially in Gangnam. Now, I remember back in the 80s when I took a trip to Korea, or, just even like shows. Uh, of course, Gangnam is close to $1 million US. He said average of 840, but it's close to a million for Gangnam. It was only like 50,000 back in 87, 1987. Think about that. 50,000 US dollars to now what it is. So just keep a thought there.
Many in Korea even debate between whether the S&P 500 or the Seoul housing scene is the better investment. Which one do you think is better? And second, we have financial risk-taking. In Korean, 영끌 and 갭투자. Many young Koreans rely on 영끌, meaning scraping together everything they have to buy a home. This includes maxing out on loans, borrowing from family, and leveraging every penny of savings. And then others turn to 갭투자, which means gap investment, purchasing homes by exploiting Korea's unique rental system, 전세, where tenants pay large deposits instead of monthly rent. For example, you purchase a house for 1 million USD and the rental deposit is 400k USD. Then you find a tenant willing to pay the 400k USD, so you only need to cover the remaining 600k. And let's say the property value rises to 1.3 million US dollars. That means you're getting a 300k profit out of an initial 600k investment. However, this speculative behavior has led to a wave of something called 전세 사기, 전세 fraud cases where landlords disappear with the tenants' deposits, leaving renters financially devastated. So these 전세 사기 cases have recently created a huge havoc in society, and the government is currently doing their best to make laws to protect the tenants. And then people would often ask why, despite the risks, Koreans prefer 전세. It's because you're not bleeding out your money monthly by rent, and you actually get your money back after the term ends. And usually, this chonse, the big amount of deposit, is lent by your parents or loans that have lower interest than monthly rent. Going on, another reason why the housing prices are so crazy in Korea is because of speculation and policy failures. Because the housing prices are going up like crazy, government interventions like price caps and tax changes are implemented, but as people find loopholes and the free market being not that easy to put a leash on, it normally backfires, fueling more demand and speculation instead of cooling it. Also, some government run projects drive up speculation rampantly, such as areas near new infrastructure projects like, for example, the GTX high speed rail. And the last reason would be infrastructure and prestige. Besides money and policies, areas like Gangnam, Seongsu, Seoul Forest, edges of the Han River, or maybe even being just in Seoul are synonymous with status and wealth, further driving the prices up. Well-known properties like Pampo Wambeli, Akro River Park, Seoul Forest, Galleria Foray often see fierce competition fueled by prestige more than practicality.
Yeah. So yeah, so geez. It's yeah, really gone up. And I even talked to maybe some of you know, the people that work in these companies. When sometimes I get a contract to teach English, they're just like, yeah, I'm moving to different places because Seoul is just so expensive. Or I have a house in Sejong, or in other cities, because it's just much cheaper, even if it's still high, like an average of 200,000. But yeah, like because in where I live in Daejeon, a lot of the like workers, have homes like in Sejong or outer Daejeon, because it's even getting expensive here too, where I'm at. So yeah, so let's see.
On top of that prestige, more and more convenience and entertainment facilities start gathering around these complexes, making a snowball effect. Thus, everyone at the end dreams of and desires to live in these certain apartments and areas. Now, here's the dark side of it. Obviously, the relentless pursuit of home ownership in Korea has become a full blown mental health crisis, especially for younger generations burdened by the overwhelming anxiety and hopelessness of never affording a home. After enduring the harsh rat race for college and stable jobs, they immediately face crushing housing pressures that ripple into declining marriage, low birth rates, rising mental health issues, and in extreme cases, contributing to South Korea's high suicide rate. In fact, many Koreans live in poor conditions like half basement apartments or chicken cage rooms, trapped by skyrocketing housing prices. As one bitter comment puts it, why have kids when you can spend your whole life saving for 84 square meters of concrete? And this crisis underscores the immense weight of societal pressures in Korea, resonating with a global sense of despair among those caught in the struggle for survival.
Okay, and now you remember he just mentioned about like the 84 meters of concrete, and most maybe live down in basements. Remember that movie Parasite? You know, you don't want to live in underneath. And and when I first came here, I'm like, ooh, yes, basement, man. I want to live in the basement. Yeah, it's cool because it's cool for us in around the United States, because in the Midwest, you want a basement. California, it's earthquake proof. But when I'm in the Midwest, I'm like, yay, basement. But in Korea, they're like, no, King, you don't want to get an apartment in a basement. It was cheap too. I was like, hell yeah. And then they're like, no, 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 don't get it. So I just decided, okay, fine. So I just got me a basic, place. But yeah, in the basement. But yeah, in Korea, basement means, yeah, you're living really down and out. All right, let's continue.
In South Korea, the intense pressure to own a home can feel overwhelming, leaving many people stressed and struggling to find ways to cope. Unfortunately, methods like therapy are often dismissed as unnecessary or even seen as a sign of weakness. However, in my opinion, therapy is exactly what many Koreans need. BetterHelp is a paid partner
Okay.
of this video, and they are on a mission
And
to
we're going to
simplify
fast
starting
forward better
therapy. A
help.
safe accessible to anyone, leading people to think buying an apartment is within their ability when it's not. And in July alone, about $32 billion in loans were taken out to buy apartments solely. Birth rates are dropping to 0.5, yet people believe real estate prices will only rise. For
Mm.
example, during Japan's bubble era, the Japanese also believed that real estate prices would always go up,
Hmm.
but the bubble eventually burst. Was it because the Japanese were foolish? No, Japan was also burdened by immense debt and people rushed to buy homes with loans. Eventually, South Korea's real estate market will face the same collapse. Despite this historical example, greedy Koreans fail to see that they're digging their own graves. This forum itself is a representation of pure greed, people pouring their entire assets into apartments, hoping for prices to rise endlessly. There's no other country in the world as obsessed with real estate as Korea. The real estate market in South Korea is bound to crash. Every indicator points towards a collapse, and deep down, even those who have over leveraged know this. They're just choosing to ignore it.
A massive fire
Yeah.
rages on throughout Northern
When AI models are open source,
Sorry about
they're
that.
available to all.
And these are the heated replies to this post. LMAO, so are you planning to live on the streets, or maybe you should just rent a place? Bro, throughout history, countless wars have been fought, and most of these wars were to gain fertile land. Compared to the past where people risked their lives and went to war over land, isn't today much more civilized?
And a lot of people are moving towards Seoul, Metro Seoul, because 50% is kind of in, the area around Seoul. So that's where most people want to be. Now, for example, I'm not in Seoul. I'm in one of the five biggest cities. But yeah, that's where all the intense competition is, and from where I'm at, I'm a train right away, a bullet speed train. So I could get there in, less than an hour to Seoul, to Metro Seoul. So that's how, good it is with the public transportation. And, and real quick, when I worked at the railway station, some of the directors that I taught were coming from, faraway cities. They're like, yeah, I just took the metro. Or sometimes they're like, hey, King, could we have the class at 9 instead of 8? I'm like, yeah, why don't you tell me? Just tell me. And yeah, he would come from like cities like Daegu, Busan to Daejeon, because I'll take the bullet speed train. And they're like, yep, I'm here. So yeah, you could even do your job because the public transportation is so good. All right, let's continue. Let's see.
If the country is obsessed with real estate, just get obsessed too. If it's stocks, then go all in stocks. Don't act like you're above it all. Then just go against the market without the pointless whining. Yet today, another all time high is being set again. As you can see, there is a stark divide in sentiment between those who own homes and those who don't. Homeowners often go to great lengths to maintain current prices, even attacking economists or YouTubers who predict a housing market crash. Some apartment owner communities even collude to keep prices high by agreeing not to sell below a certain threshold. While the housing crisis is largely systemic, the mentality of individuals further fuels the obsession with real estate, driving prices even higher. This behavior makes the gap between the rich and poor even bigger, with owning real estate becoming the main factor that decides your wealth. Speaking of a divide, let's look at the global divide. Even globally, South Korea's housing market is an outlier. In other developed countries, real estate makes up a balanced share of household wealth. In the US, for example, housing comprises 28.5% of household assets. In Japan, it's 37%, and in the UK, it's 46.2%. In Korea, it's a staggering 78.6% of household wealth tied up in property. Even among countries with high population densities, South Korea's housing market stands out. Here are the price to income ratios, PIRs, for major cities. Starting with Tokyo at 10.3, New York 14.0, London at 14.8, Rome 15.1, Singapore 15.5, Paris 17.8, Seoul 25.1.
Ah.
It shows that Seoul residents would need to work and save for over 10 years longer to afford a home. This dependency and concentration on real estate makes families vulnerable to market fluctuations and have less flexibility in daily life spendings. Also, as aforementioned, this extreme reliance on real estate exacerbates social inequalities. The wealth gap is widening, and for many young people, home ownership feels less like a dream and more like an impossible goal. In fact, 98% of the households in the top 20% of the wealth pyramid own real estate, compared to only 10% in the bottom 20%. Currently, the government is attempting a lot of methods to provide young people with better access to affordable housing, such as lottery programs. However, due to overwhelming demand, the average competition rate for these lotteries in Seoul is 142.8 to 1, with some cases far exceeding this average as well. For example, the Jamsil Remian I Park saw 268.7 to 1, and a specific unit even recorded 591.2 to 1. Not only private but also public housing lotteries face extreme competition, such as a public housing complex in Dongjakgu, which had a staggering 1,147.9 to 1 rate. Some housing lotteries offer additional credit points for certain statuses, such as being married, having children, not owning a home, or being part of an international couple. As a result, some people go great lengths to improve their chances, even falsifying their statuses. And funny story, back in the day when regulations were less strict than now, an extreme example at my university involved two freshmen who faked marriage shortly after enrolling to qualify for the lottery. Their high points secured them a win, along with a newlywed low-interest loan and student
wow.
loan, which they combined with family money to purchase a house. And then they lived as roommates throughout their 4 to 5 years in college as a disguised married couple, then divorced years later, selling the house for a multiple X profit.
Oh, wow. Oh, damn. Damn, talk about extreme. Oh, man. Oh, wow. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, my goodness. So- Wow, two freshmen. Yep, that was a smart way to do it. But wow. All right, let's continue.
And these cases highlight the extraordinary lengths some Koreans will go to secure housing in such a fiercely competitive market. The biggest question remaining is, when will the bubble burst, or will it even?
Yep.
Hello, I'm Jimmy Kimmel, and welcome to Can You Gift It?
All right, Jimmy.
And even if it does, would losing 50% of a
Wow.
2x profit even qualify as a true bubble burst? Despite the risk, many Koreans remain convinced that property values will keep climbing. But history tells a somewhat different story. In the 1990s, Japan's infamous property bubble burst, leaving entire neighborhoods abandoned and families financially ruined, and some areas still haven't recovered to this day. Also, the 2008 US subprime mortgage crisis serves as another stark warning, where risky loans fueled a speculative frenzy that ended with millions losing their homes and triggered a global recession. Now, experts warn that Seoul's housing market may be heading for a similar
Yeah.
collapse, with devastating consequences not only for individual households but for the broader economy. The question isn't just if the bubble will burst, it's how severe the fallout will be. And will the Koreans that have entrusted basically all of their savings into house be able to survive that? You might be wondering by now, Seoul, what about other cities? As I've explained in previous videos, Korea's Seoul-centric structure is at the heart of many of the country's problems.
Yeah. And as I said, people want to move up to Seoul, and it's like, yo, like, and one more thing, like even when I, worked the companies, like as an English teacher, uh, a lot of the families, like, some of the companies, a lot of them all graduated from Sky, which is Seoul Korea University, and Yonsei. They actually have apartments and homes, and it's actually apartments because not a lot of homes in Korea. They actually go home every week. They spend their time in like my town in Daejeon, how to work the company, and then they go, okay, I'm going home this weekend. I'm like, home, and this is when I first became was teaching at these companies, they're like, yeah, it's in Seoul. My family's in Seoul. My wife and kids is in Seoul. I'm like, oh, okay. So I kind of learned like a lot of the workers that work in these, big companies like in Samsung, LG, Kepco, and all these places. Yeah, their homes are all the way in Seoul. So that's where they want to be. But the work is out here. So let's finish up with Dave's video.
While housing in other regions is relatively affordable, Korea is a small nation where everything business, education, entertainment, finance, and more is concentrated all in Seoul. As a result, people from across the country flock to the capital, either chasing the Seoul dream or simply because other cities lack jobs, opportunities, or even potential partners. Naturally, this relentless demand continues to drive up housing prices. The Korean housing crisis isn't just an economic issue, it's reshaping society. For young Koreans, the dream of home ownership feels increasingly out of reach, and the pressure to achieve it takes a toll on mental health, relationships, and life plans. Addressing this crisis will require systemic change, including affordable housing initiatives, cultural shifts around property ownership, and stricter financial regulations. But perhaps, in my opinion, the most important change lies in the redefining of success. Is a lifetime of debt really worth a 25-year mortgage on a tiny apartment, or is it time to rethink what truly matters in life? I guess, as the commenters say, then what choice do you have? Are you going to live on the streets or get a rent? I don't know. I guess that's why we're all screwed. So let me know in the comments, what's the housing situation like in your country? Do you have any hope at all, or does it feel just as unattainable as it does here?
Yeah, and shout out to Dave. But yeah, it's really just around the world, the housing market, and especially here in Korea and Seoul, and especially even in the some of the bigger cities here, Seoul, Busan, and other cities, it's starting to cost a lot of money for housing. So yeah, and of course, this leads into real quickly, like the 4B movement, as a lot of the Westerners says, oh, it started in South Korea. Yeah, that 4B movement is not because of no this, no that, no B, no marriage, no sex. No, it's because a lot of housing's expensive, and the way Korean culture works, it's generally usually the man gets the house, the wife gets the furniture. But these days, no one can afford it. It's crazy for the average dude. So just something to think about. All right, man. If you enjoyed any of this content, please give me the HKO special help thinking out. Hit the like, subscribe, and comment. And wherever you are, stay safe, and I'll see you in my next video.